Okay, so here we are in our program. First thing to know is, are you signed in? So make sure you're signed in so you can save your stuff. We've got our cat here as our first guy. But the first button that I want to create is a button that says basically start and stop. I want to create a status button. And you may remember that I wanted that button to blink on and off when I clicked on the button. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a new sprite for my start button. And so I'm going to go paint a new sprite, and up is going to pop this, and it defaults to bitmap mode, but I'm going to switch to vector mode, and I'm going to type something, and Donegal is a font I tend to like. So now I'm going to hit or type the word start. Okay. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to put a box around this item. Here's why. If you just have the word start and you say, am I going to click on start? You have to make sure that you're hitting one of the letters of start, one of the black parts of letters. If you're touching part of the white part, you won't actually be clicking it. So what I want to do is put a white box behind it. So now that I've got the word start, I'm going to go here, select a rectangle, and I'm going to make it a white rectangle. And I'm going to make a white rectangle that is about the same size as my start. And there it is. It doesn't look like it's filled with anything. I wonder why. Is it filled? I'm going to click on it, make sure it's filled, and hopefully it's filled. I don't know, we'll find out. Then I'm going to touch the start. So I grab the arrow, and I go back here to start, and I drag this on top. And that doesn't seem to be working the way I want it to be working. For one thing, it looks like that was not a white filled rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'm going to hit delete, and I'm going to create a new one. So, oh, I know why, because it said it's not filled. This is the filled button. So I'm going to click that. Now it's filled. I'm going to make sure it's filled white. I'm going to draw, and you can see this white thing appear on the screen. It's the same size as my word start. And I'm going to drag it right on top of start, and start disappeared. But now I can change the level. So I can go back a level and start will be there. So now I've got this white start thing, which is perfect. And then the next thing I need to do is I need to make sure that the computer knows where it is in space. Here's what I mean by this. If you have a drawing, a complex drawing with something over here, and something over here, something here, and maybe some stuff over here, the computer needs to know where the middle of it is. For something like this, it's pretty simple, but you need to tell the computer that the middle of it is not the T. The middle of it, in fact, is the middle of it. So often you'll have to reassign where the middle is, and now it's right in the middle. And all you do to do that is you click this little thing, this little target, and you move it to the center of your item. Okay, so I've got costume 1 of this, and instead of calling it costume 1, I'm going to call it start, so that I name my costumes. And I'm actually going to duplicate this costume, so I'm going to hit I think it's Control Shift. Yes, Control and Shift at the same time. Click on it. Then I'm going to let go of Control and Shift, and I'm going to select Duplicate, and it's going to make a new one, and it's called Start 2, but I'm going to name it Stop. And I'm going to change the look of it from Start to Stop. So I'm going to touch this thing again, double click in here, and hopefully I can just start typing Stop. And perfect. So now I've got start and stop. So I've got 2 costumes, and so far so good. Now it's time for me to actually program what I want this costume to do. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag it down here to the lower right hand. And there are a few things I want to have happen. First thing is I want this to kind of be in control of an overall status of the program. Is my program running? Is it not running? So when the program starts, the program should not be running. So I'm going to say my event is when this green flag is clicked, I'm going to create a variable. And this variable is going to be a global variable. Everybody in the world is going to know about this variable. And my variable is going to be called status. What's going on with my game, basically. And it's for all sprites. And here I've created the variable status. So when I click on the flag, I'm going to set status to 0, which means I don't want anything to be happening right now. And I'm going to go to looks and switch my costume to start. So if people click on it, it will look like start. So let's go ahead and run the program right now. It switches to costume start, and that's all it does. Okay, and status is 0. Next thing I want to do is I want to check forever something. I always want to be checking to see what the user is doing with this start button. So I'm going to say control forever, and I'm going to put a whole bunch of stuff in this forever. First thing I want to do is I want to say when the mouse is over this guy, I want him to gray out. I want him to be slightly gray. And the reason for that is I want him to, I want you as a user to kind of know that the mouse is over this. That's called user interface design. And I want to give you some feedback that the mouse is near the start button and you can actually click on it and do something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if touching mouse pointer, so that's one of the sensing things you can do. If touching mouse pointer, then, well, I probably need an if else actually. So I'm going to do if else. So if the mouse pointer is kind of over it, I want to set the brightness of the thing to 50, which actually kind of makes it shade out. So I'm going to set the brightness effect to 50, and otherwise I'm going to set the brightness effect to 0, which means that it just looks normal. So I'm going to set brightness effect to 0. Okay, so let's go ahead and run our program right now. One of the neat things about programming is you're always testing what you're doing. So do you see how the start fades out? When the mouse is over it, it almost looks like it's ready to click. Of course, it doesn't do anything yet. So now I need to actually have something happen when I click on it. Well, I'm going to say if the mouse is touching it, so just like this again, but this time I'll just use an if. If the mouse is touching it and the mouse is down, so it's not just that the mouse is over it, but also I want to say and mouse down, which is sensing, and mouse down, then I want to do something. This is going to be cool. So I'm going to change the status. Now the status goes from 0 to 1, 0 to 1. Now I can't just change it to 1 because I need to know what the status was before, right? If the status was 0, I'm going to change it to 1. If the status was 1, I'm going to change it to 0. It's like an on-off switch. So I need another if statement. This is called a nested if statement, 2 if statements in a row, and that's fine. So this will mean if this is happening, then check to see if this is happening. So if my status equals 0, let's see, if my status equals 0, then I'm going to switch it to 1, right? Switch my status to 1. Set status to 1. Set status to 1. And then I'm going to switch costume to stop. All right, excellent. Let's say I probably did need an else in here too, because it really depends if, well, I can just duplicate this. So I'm going to hit Control Shift duplicate. If status equals 1, then set status to 0 and switch it to start. Okay, let's check it out. So we've got status, right? And let's see what happens. It's not doing what I expected. So if touching mouse pointer and mouse down, switch to costume to stop, switch costume to start. Set status the other way. I think what's happening here is that we need to wait until the mouse is not down. Literally, I think it's going back and forth and toggling back and forth between 1 and 0, and it's doing so fast you can't even see that it's happening. But sometimes when you click down on something, it's just going to keep switching back and forth, right? So let's see if that works. So let's go ahead and say switch costume to stop, and then wait. Let's do a little bit of waiting here. Wait until mouse is up. So how do you say mouse is up? You would say not mouse down. because that's the opposite of up is down, so not mouse down. Okay, wait until not mouse down. I'm going to duplicate this by hitting Option Shift, duplicate, put the same thing here. All right, now let's try it. Okay, I see what's happening. It is switching, but it's also not exactly operating the way I would like it to do. So let's see. If status equals, it starts with 0. If status equals 0, then set status to 1, switch to stop, good, and wait. If status equals 1, set status to 0, switch to start, and wait. Why is it not sticking in one place? There's something that is setting it. And where is it? I'm going to look for my problem. I got my problem. It's like a logical error. Here's what's happening. So I'm saying if status equals 0, then immediately set it to 1. And then what it does is it goes, oh, status is 1, so I'm going to switch it back. So I can't use two if statements here. I actually need to use an if-else statement. That will work because if status equals 0, then do all this stuff. Otherwise, do all this stuff. Okay. Otherwise, it'll keep doing both at once. This will solve my problem. Check this out. This is really going to work nicely. I'm going to have, oops, I'm going to have this really nice toggle switch. So I'm going to hit go, and 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0. Okay, that's totally slick and cool. The only thing I wish it did is I wish that it kind of blinked a little bit when I clicked on it. So I'm going to make a blink. I'm going to create a function, and I'm going to make a block called blink. And here's what blink is going to do. It's going to, I don't know, it's going to make it fade out for a second. So I'm going to set ghost effect to 100. That's going to make it hide, basically. Set ghost effect to 100. Or actually I can do it like, no, 100 is good. Make it really hide. Now I'm going to have it wait for a very, very short period of time, like 5/100ths of a second. 5/100ths of a second, and then I'm going to clear the graphic effects. All right, so that's called blink, and now I'm going to use this blink here. I'm going to say blink when this happens. So let's check out my function here. Did I create an on-off switch? My on-off switch is just creating this variable, which is going to turn from 1 to 0. So here we go. Yep, and it blinks, and my variable changes. So what's really cool is once my status is 1, I can have the other buttons show up. Like I wanted a button that said more to draw more things, and I also wanted one that said clear. I'll tell you what I don't want though, is I don't want this cat. So I'm going to hit Option Shift. Oops, I'm going to hit, nope, is it Option or Control Shift? Yeah, it's Control Shift and then delete. I'm going to delete the cat. So now I want a couple more buttons. So let's go back to my guy here, and I'm going to, well, I'll make the other buttons in a little bit. So far we've got our toggle switch, which goes from 1 to 0. So that's a pretty good start, and that we call that part 1.